Hello and welcome to episode 190 of Magic Rays of Light, a podcast exploring the world of Apple TV and so much more. I'm your host, Sigmund Judge. I'm joined once again by my co-host, Mr. Devon Dundee. And Devon, this is a bit of a strange week. We have a week of dinosaurs to come next week. And whilst embargo meant that the film wasn't in our plans for this week, we will be talking about Friday's release, The Family Plan 2, next week. So this week, we're going to be talking more, I think, about gifts from the Apple TV perspective, as well as the world of books and adaptations, and we may even dive into tvOS and audiobooks as well. But I wanted to start with a bit of a confession.
Oh boy.
Fagan told me to do it. And if you know what that reference is to, it's Fagan from Oliver, that famous song, and I'll play a clip now.
I'm afraid these don't grow on trees. You got to pick a pocket or two. You got to pick a pocket or two, boy.
Of course, you've got to pick a pocket or two. And if you were lucky enough to jump onto apple.com last week for the Apple and Issey Miyake collaboration for the iPhone Pocket, then you would have got hold of something that is actually surprisingly delightful. I know I was pretty mocking of the iPhone Pocket on last week's episode, but I had a message come through from a friend of mine that said, I never know what to get you, so this Christmas I bought you the sock. I have an iPhone Pocket in purple, mainly because it's the first colour that you see on the new Apple TV ident. It's very stretchy. It's not something that I'm necessarily going to have wrapped around my wrist and kind of, strutting, doing the catwalk, so to speak. But it's something that I'm happy to have in the collection. It's beautifully designed. It's functional. Again, it was not something I would have gone out of my way to get, but in a sense, this is a little bit like last year's holiday gift, the Apple Music book, which I have. Have you seen any videos, or have you seen anyone hands-on now with the iPhone Pocket? And what do you think? Do you feel like you missed out? Because one thing I will say is, and I can say this through testing, perfect, not just for the iPhone, but 100%, I actually think these were designed initially as an accessory for the Apple Vision Pro battery.
I haven't been seeking out hands-on videos, mostly because I was afraid I would be tempted to drop the money and order one myself. And I guess now that's not a problem because they instantly sold out, which I didn't predict. We don't know how many they made, but I think it does say something about the demand for the product, that it's basically wiped out now in terms of what's available. And I should have known, Sigmund, that you ended up with one way or another. I didn't think about it as the holiday collectible, but that does make a ton of sense. And I'm happy that you got one. I'm looking forward to seeing some photos of you out and about on the town with your iPhone Pocket. And I think it does make a lot of sense in terms of the collection, but also just your aesthetic. I think it makes sense for you to have one. And I'm happy for you, and I'm happy for myself for resisting the urge to buy one, because I really was tempted, that crossbody. I mean, I love carrying my iPhone around in fun ways like that. Now I guess my only option would be to buy it secondhand, which I can't even imagine what those prices are going to be like.
It's honestly not worth looking at. The colours in person are really, really nice. They're very vibrant. Again, really interesting because the pockets are flat, but then when you start putting stuff in, they expand. And it's a really, really interesting design from how it's been executed. So, I'll give them that. And again, I'm very happy to have it in my collection. But obviously, last year when we had the Apple Music book, we put in a request for an Apple TV book right? Maybe the best films from the short history of Apple TV, or the best originals, or something related to Apple TV and Apple original films. Maybe even a countdown of the best films ever from Apple original creatives. That's what I hope we still get at some point, hopefully through someone like Aseline. That hasn't happened. Instead, though, this year has been very much the year of adaptations. Not necessarily just those that have already come to our screen thus far this year, but those that are in the planning stage, some of which are coming out to correspond with the author's book release in which they're based on, which is really, really interesting. And I know this is an Apple TV podcast based on our viewing habits, but our viewing habits tend to change our other habits. And I think, especially this year, your reading habits have changed.
Yes, quite a lot. And it's a bit of a journey that I'm going to be taking you on, Sigmund, but it's been a lot of fun and something I thought listeners might be interested in hearing more about. So yeah, I think part of it is coming from basically seeing Apple pick up a new book every week, some that have been around for a long time, some that have yet to be published, and knowing that there's this whole world of stories that are being adapted, that I love reading the books and comparing them to their on-screen versions. And I also love the idea of reading the book and knowing what's coming, but also being able to see how they make changes in the adaptations. And so that whole world's always fascinated with me, and I love to read, but I've really let that habit fall off in terms of the amount of time that I've dedicated to reading and sitting down and really just focusing on reading a story and being immersed in it for a certain amount of time. I do good with TV, but with reading, not as much. And so this year, especially this summer, it really came to the forefront for me. I purchased a parenting book, of all things, something that obviously very close to my heart right now, something I want to make sure I'm doing a good job of. And it was a really interesting concept. I thought it was one that I could apply even with my son as young as he is now. And that was July when I bought that book. And I said, I'm going to read a chapter a day. I'm going to get this knocked out, and it's going to be a great thing. Well, we get to early October, and I'm halfway through the book, and I get kind of frustrated with myself. I'm like, why am I not making progress here? And I realized that I spend so much of my time listening to things, listening to podcasts, listening to music, even listening to articles that are converted from text to speech. And it's like, why am I not trying to take in this book information in the same way? And of course, audiobooks have been a thing forever. It's just not a world I've ever explored. So I did something I imagine a lot of people do. I took a book that I was enjoying reading, and I bought the audiobook form of it, and basically just midway through the book, just switched formats, and ended up finishing the book within a couple of weeks, this book that I had struggled through for months. And it was so refreshing because I got to take in that information. I got to do it while I was walking, which I do for exercise. I had tried reading while walking, which is very dangerous. Don't do that. Not only does it look funny, but also you could step out in front of traffic and get yourself hurt very badly. And so it's taken that reading habit that I've always loved and wanted to get back into, and it's incorporated it into my life in a way that fits with where I'm at right now. And so I've then journeyed deeper into the world of audiobooks. I posted this on Mastodon. I said I bought one audiobook, and then within a week I was an Audible subscriber, and just diving deeper and deeper into the habit, which I think is something that you'll find if you start down that path, it can lead you deeper and deeper. It can become a bit of an expensive hobby, but it is something that is very enjoyable as well, and you can find deals and things like that. So I'm subscribed to Audible now. I've been getting into more fiction. That was the one nonfiction book that I read, but I've been getting into fiction, trying to go through my backlog of Apple Originals and get to those books. And so far I've read 5 books, which I know for a lot of people at this point in the year is probably not a ton, but for me that's quite an accomplishment. I actually just today, right before we recorded, finished listening to Wool, the first book in the Silo series, and getting to compare that to the first 2 seasons, which has been awesome. So I'm trying not to make it my whole personality, Sigmund, but I am loving the audiobook listening lifestyle right now, and it's been something that's been really beneficial for me so far. So I wanted to share a little bit about that, but I also wanted to ask you, are you an audiobook listener? Have you ever given this a try?
I have. In fact, I like all sorts of books, but mainly biographies. So listening to the biographies from the person that it's about, and even if it wasn't necessarily written by them and it was like shadow written, or self-help. Rick Rubin, the famed music producer, has an incredible book out there that has an area in which you can like tactically write your own notes based on what's being said and your own thoughts, which I know you're big into journaling, but that's slowly getting me into journaling written form rather than digital, and kind of stepping away from digital, which I think we're going to be talking about a lot in this episode. The thing, and we obviously talk about Apple's entertainment offerings and their service offerings. The thing that I wish for, and I don't think is possible, maybe it is via Audible, which I think is an Amazon company, right? Is there a way of, because I thought it was quite interesting, you saying, you switching between reading and then listening to the book. Do both forms sync together? And if so, is that something that Apple do as well?
I wish. Currently, I think the way that book rights work, they're two totally separate products. And so I'm not aware of a way of linking those together. I would love to get to a place where books are more like films in the sense that you can buy them once but get them in multiple formats, get them physical, digital, things like that. I understand why they're separate. I mean, audiobooks do cost quite a bit to produce. That's why they cost so much. You got to get the voice talent. Some productions have gone all the way into like full-on audio dramas with different voices for different characters and things like that, which is a cool idea, but obviously adds to the cost as well. So as of now, it's manual, and I actually did that a little bit with Wool as well. I got really into the audiobook, but Wool's quite a long book, and so I thought at one point, what if I tried to supplement that with some ebook reading as well, because I already own the Silo series in the Apple Books app. So I tried that, but it is manual. You have to make sure you're staying in sync. I ended up just finishing it on audiobook, but it's a cool idea, and I would love to see something like that come to the forefront. Of course, there's been lots of discussions about what does digital ownership mean and how is that communicated. So I think all that's up in the air, but currently at least they're two very separate things.
And that surprises me, because if we think about how Apple and other companies are packaging podcasts these days, right, with full transcripts in sync and everything else, you would think that the same qualities could come to books and audio, and almost it would be cool if it could be sold as a package to oversee those costs when it comes to audiobook production. And I would imagine, because obviously there are iOS accessibility features in which you can use Braille keyboards in order to read, that would be another step in which Apple and their book offerings could probably take another leap of faith. It's interesting. I mean, how is it that you're going about it? For me, I would just be listening solo on my AirPods. But because books aren't available everywhere, I don't think it's become as second nature to me to listen or read the book as it is for, Apple Music or the TV app. I would just also say, from my perspective, as a movie viewer and TV show watcher predominantly, there is something about an adaptation brought to screen where, whilst it may not be exactly how I would have imagined it, I feel like, especially with all of the behind the scenes that we get and the discussion that we get about the creative process of bringing a book adaptation to life and brought to screen, if you reread books, Do you imagine the book the second time round completely different, or is it the same kind of creative flow each time? Because I don't think I've ever reread a book.
It's interesting. There are a couple books from my childhood that I've reread. I think I've shared my Chronicles of Narnia love many times here. I've read through that series, I don't even know how many times. And actually, the film adaptations did impact the way that I imagine those stories when I read them now, because you've got this actor whose face you now associate with that character. And whereas when I read a book for the first time and you're kind of filling in the gaps, I feel like it's a little murkier, at least in my mind, of what exactly everything looks like. You try to get a very solid understanding in your mind of how it all looks, but I think having a different medium to go off of does impact my reading and my understanding. And so when I was reading The Handmaid's Tale, which was a book that I listened to recently, all I could see was Elizabeth Moss, right? Even though that may not be the picture that you have in your mind. And actually, a couple of the characters, the way they're described physically in the book, look very different from their on-screen adaptations. And it does impact. It goes back the other way, I think. I feel like film and TV are such strong mediums visually that it can't help but feed backwards and impact the way you read. So that's been interesting. But from a technical perspective, I've been really enjoying, I mostly use my phone as the basis. These do cloud syncing in terms of your status, so you can't switch devices, but I've just found that my phone being with me all the time, it's the main way that I listen to anything, podcast, music, whatever. And I just mostly use that as the home base. And whether it's Apple Books with audiobooks or it's Audible or whatever app, there's a whole world of, audiobook apps out there, ones that you can buy, ones you can import your own. And that's a whole world that I've not fully dove into yet. But of course, they integrate with the system-wide audio player. So you've got it on your lock screen and control center. You've got your controls from the AirPods, which is mostly how I listen. I found that I can listen anytime I'm not doing anything that requires thinking with words. And so like podcasts, I can listen to a podcast while I'm working, no problem. Just kind of let the conversation wash over me, and I can follow a conversation that way. But the details of a book really require a little bit more concentration than that, at least the way I do it. So if I'm walking, if I'm doing chores, if I'm driving, anything like that, eating lunch, I really enjoy listening to audiobooks while I'm eating lunch, because that's something, my hands are tied up. I can't be turning pages on a book, but I can listen, and that's been great. In the car, CarPlay's been excellent with this. Apple Books and Audible both have great CarPlay integrations, and that's actually the one place where I listen to books with someone else. My wife and I are listening back through that parenting book together now. So I'm actually rereading that one that I just read recently. So it's all very fresh, but that's a group activity and we can talk about it. And that's been pretty cool. You know me, Sigmund, I have to get shortcuts in the mix as well. I've created a shortcut for listening to things. I've put it in my action button. And so I've got options for podcast, audiobook, music, and my scripture reading that I listen to every day. And so whichever one I'm doing right then, I just hit the action button, choose that one, and it starts playing right where it left off. Very automated, and that's been handy as well. And the other thing, you mentioned it, I have to integrate it with my journaling as well. This is actually a hole in Apple's journaling suggestions. Apple has the Books app with books and audiobooks, but there's no logging of that in any of the supported, in Apple's Journal app or any other supported journaling app. There's no suggestions for those books. So I did the same thing I did with TV and movies. I went into SQL and got it all tied into shortcuts, and now when I mark a book is complete, it goes into my journal, and I'm able to reflect on it there as well. So that's been a cool integration. I had to build it myself. I would love to see that become a standard integration with journaling, but it's cool that I'm able to do that with shortcuts. The one integration that I'm really missing and wish was there was in the home, because when I'm home alone, I don't really want to be walking around with my AirPods. That's just not something that I would prefer to do. I have HomePods in just about every room in my house, and I'd love to be able to just tell Siri to play whatever book I'm listening to and pull it up. And of course, we've seen the HomePods get integration with more and more music apps over time, which has been great for people who subscribe to different ones. But we haven't seen that for audiobooks in any form, whether Apple's app or any third party. And so there's no way natively with a HomePod to play an audiobook via voice. You have to start it on another device and AirPlay it, which is not ideal. I mean, it's still an integration that you have, and it's good to have as an option. But I would love to see native integration with these audiobook services so that we can listen to them that way. And you think about live captions, which is an option on tvOS. I mean, that would be another very accessible way to take in a book where you could listen and also read along. So yeah, I think that there's a little bit of a gap there with the home integration. And that's where I'd like to see a little bit more integration with the audiobooks. I don't know at this point if that's front of mind or anything like that, but as someone who's recently got into this world, I was pretty surprised that wasn't an option.
Yeah, and the thing that I would love to see from a Apple TV and tvOS perspective, not just the standalone app, but I'd love to see some kind of visual component to books as well. We've got a show, I think it's called Jackanory in the UK, where famous people will come and sit down and read a bedtime story. Right? Very, very cool. I think the funniest one was Samuel L. Jackson back in the day. But what I would say is I think there's an element there that could be quite entertaining as well. If we have the author or if we have someone reading the book on screen, whether that is for children and family or whether it's adult fiction or something along those lines. And they would be, I'd imagine fairly cheap to produce. When it comes to Apple Originals, we've had the book tie-ins, right, from Mythic Quest to Severance, all the way through now to Pluribus this past week. It would have been great to have got a visual component of that as well. Maybe that is where things start, because I really feel that books, to be more accessible, and I think also to bring people back to reading, because there has been recent reports of illiteracy, seeing how everything is in audio video form. If we can find a way of being able to bring that next generation back into reading books, maybe start them off with the audio video and then go, okay, this chapter is reading only. Maybe there's an element there as well that could seep into the education systems. I don't know. I don't know that much. It's way above my pay grade. But I definitely think there's a future there. And again, it's whether or not Apple decide that they want to spearhead that future or leave it to the likes of Amazon.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'd love to see more of those kinds of integration come to Apple's platforms. We've seen great progress, like I said, in the music world. Seeing that in audiobooks, I think would be awesome as well. And seeing more of that translated in ways that are more accessible. On the accessibility front, I'll also say that if your local library integrates with Libby or another platform that offers digital lending, that can be a great way to listen to audiobooks in a way that's more affordable. So definitely check out that option as well and just support your local library because they're really great resources for that kind of thing.
You've just made me think about something in regard to book purchases. How cool would it be if your Apple TV or your Mac or whatever could act as the hub to your personal library, and you could lend out books to people that come and visit, right? That kind of thing from a digital point of view to bring that physical element back. I didn't even have that in the notes. It's just you talking about library, and I'm thinking, yeah, but what about ours, right? And so that would be really, really cool. In terms of your perspective on adaptation and how it's changed the experience of watching films and TV shows. I know you talked about how films and TV shows have changed your perspective on reading books, maybe the second or third time through. But how has it changed the other way around? And how do you think it's going to change going into the future, especially with these dual releases happening? I'm guessing they're not going to release the books chapter by chapter as each episode rolls out. Or maybe they will.
That would be a fascinating way to read it. And I guess I'd have that chance with the third season of Silo as well. I've been thinking if I can fit in the second Silo book before that third season And that would be a really interesting way to read it. But what I've been thinking about is questioning a really old and ingrained idea in my head. And you've probably heard this before, Sigmund. When people are talking about a movie that's based on a book, very often you'll hear, oh, but the book was so much better because there's this, this, and this that wasn't included or wasn't done right. You know, people who love a book, it's very hard to please sometimes with an adaptation because you just get so invested. You have your idea in your head of what it's supposed to be. And it's not just books. I mean, they're adapting The Legend of Zelda to a film right now. And some of the online comments about that have been fascinating as well. I think it's any time you translate from one medium to the other. But I think reading these books through again in light of the series and films that have been made based on them, it's just given me a further appreciation for that creative process, because it really is an incredible thing to take this novel and turn it into a story that people can watch in 2.5 hours or 8 hours on TV and translate it in a way that brings these things to life. And really, it caused me to reconsider that old notion, like, yes, the books are fantastic. Like, there's no reason to discount those, but let's appreciate the work that goes into adapting those things to the screen as well. And I think they're two very different processes. I think when you're adapting to film, often that time frame is so short. It's like plot, plot, plot. You got to fit in every beat. And so sometimes you do struggle to fit in some of the nuances. And if you're trying to adapt a series while it's rolling out in book form, I mean, good luck, because you don't know what's coming next that could be important later. And, I think having the hindsight sometimes can help a lot. But then looking at a series like Silo, where the author Hugh Howey gets to be involved and get to take part in the changes to the story, because the series is quite different from the book in some of the details. The major beats mostly follow the same path, but when it comes to characters' motivations in a book, you can just get inside their heads and hear their thoughts. Whereas on a TV show, you have to make that more external and obvious to the viewer from the outside. And just different changes like that and just little tweaks to the story. I feel like you have to keep in mind the audience and their reactions to things. There are characters who audiences on TV will get really attached to and get very upset with you if you do certain things with them. And so you have to make changes and things like that. But really, to me, it's just given me a further appreciation for that. I think both processes, the writing process and the adaptation process, are incredibly creative. It's really caused me to just dig a little bit deeper into some of my preconceived notions about those things and appreciate both formats for what they are, and just get to delight in our abundance of riches right now with the stories we get access to, and that we can experience them in these different ways and make them our own, and get to be delightfully surprised when there's differences between those two versions of the story, because it gives the creators opportunities to surprise us and even keep people who know, quote unquote, what's going to happen, keep us on our toes as well. So it's been really fun. It's a great world to dive into. If there's any of the Apple Original series, especially, that are based on books that you really love, I'd encourage you to dive into the books as well, because it is worthwhile. You think, why would I want the same story twice? But it really is an enjoyable experience. And if you're like me and you just are dying to know what happens next, then you can get ahead and start to tease people as the new episodes start to roll out too.
Which is what I did, I think, at the beginning of Foundation with you, right? So, yeah, really fascinating. I want to end this segment of the podcast just to ask you this question, and I guess this is going to flow nicely into our next segment. But you getting back to reading books audibly and digitally, has it brought about a nostalgia for physical books, or are you like me and you find it really difficult that all books don't come in the same form and factor, and therefore your bookcase is always going to be a bit of a mess?
I gave up that fight a long time ago, Sigmund, with DVDs, and even within series of shows, sometimes the DVDs won't quite match, and so I've just given in to the chaos of it. But my problem with physical books is that they're so pretty, and especially if you buy like a collector's edition, something special like that, it's like, I don't even want to open this and risk bending a page or ruining it. I cherish it more for its aesthetic beauty than for what's inside, because I can read that other ways. And so honestly, if I got into collecting physical books, I think I would probably not open them and just buy them digitally as well. But that's just me. I'm guessing it bothers you that they're not quite even on your bookshelf.
It did. It did. I think I've got to the point where I want physical, pretty things. And so I've had to kind of give up this idea that I can have a perfect bookshelf and everything can be just so. And I am having to embrace the chaos a little bit, as you say. And I think that ties us nicely into this year's gift guide. Thinking about it, we're going to talk about books in a moment again, but really thinking about gift guides, something that I do with friends each and every year is we share our wish lists amongst friends to kind of make sure that everyone gets at least something that they would be interested in, or, make sure that we hadn't already bought that something special ahead of time. This year I noted, and I made mention of this on socials earlier this week, that there does seem to be a trend towards physical media this time round. And I haven't seen that really before in a way that I am now. Physical books, vinyl, CDs, 4K Blu-rays, and books of all kinds. So we've got a gift guide together this year. And this year, I think, whilst there is a little bit of Apple TV tie-in, it is going back to that embrace of intent when it comes to media consumption, and also the ritual of picking something off of the shelf. It's a different one this time round. As we'll discuss, there are ways of tying in your physical possessions to digital.
Yeah, and I think it's good to take a little bit of a different approach. You want to throw your friends and family off just a little bit with the gifts. You don't want to be too predictable with what you get them. And so I think taking a little bit of a different angle with the gift guide is a good idea. I'll start with my first pick, which ties in with our previous topic: books and audiobooks, ebooks, physical books, whatever it is. If there's someone in your life who loves any of the, especially the current Apple Original series that are based on books, then I think that they'll enjoy getting into them in the written form as well. So just some ideas. Of course, Slow Horses series by Mick Herron. We're right in the middle of that right now. I've thought about diving in and trying to catch back up with the TV series. I think there's 10 books right now, and we're right at season 5. So that would be a fun one. Silo series by Hugh Howey. Wool is currently $5 in audiobook form on Apple Books, which makes me kick myself for buying it for double that, just a little bit ago. But that's how it goes. And I think I'm going to have to start embracing the sales in terms of the timeline of when I pick things up. One that I'm very much looking forward to buying, it's currently on sale in ebook form actually, is The Big Door Prize by M.O. Walsh. And, that was a series that got cut off early on Apple TV, one that we thoroughly enjoyed. I'd be very interested to check it out in book form and hopefully get more of, what was going on with that machine.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hope there was an ending by the end of it. And it would be interesting to see, again, some kind of tie-in to the TV app where maybe, hey, this is where we left off, but you can continue reading, right? I believe the physical edition of the Big Door Prize is pretty beautiful as well. And that's the other thing also, the Silo series, how many versions Hugh Howey's put out, and they're beautiful and extravagant. Some of them are nice and easy, you can just take on a plane. The choice really is yours. What else have you got for us on your list?
Well, we got The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, and of course the upcoming The First Time I Saw Him, which is the sequel book to coincide with season 2 of the series. You can pre-order that now. If you really want to take on a big chunk of reading material and dive deep, you can read the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. Of course, it's been adapted on Apple TV, and they've pulled some things from different books and put them together into earlier seasons. So again, it's that surprise and delight that if you want a different take on that, you can get through the books as well. And then one that I know a lot of people have really enjoyed, both in book form and on Apple TV, is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Another one that's coming back, so if you want to dive into the story in book form as you wait for season 2, any of these would be great gifts for the Apple TV fan in your life. If you want to send them in ebook form, you can do that from Apple Books or Audiobook. Or if you have a person in your family who's an Audible subscriber, you can also send them credits to Audible that way. That's what I put on my Christmas list this year. I'm like, you want to send me a book? Like, that's the greatest thing you can send me right now. And so that's on my list, and I put it on our gift guide as well. What have you got for the first listing on your side of the gift guide?
Well, beforehand, a couple of book ideas. First off, you've got the Argyle physical book that was spun off from the film. And no, it wasn't written by Taylor Swift, despite all of the rumours. But for the kids, you've got Little Cinephiles books. Now, Little Cinephile was a card game for movie nerds, and they've spun off into the Cinephile books for kids. So brilliant illustrations throughout. But just to give you a taste, we've got a book on my first sci-fi movie, my first kung fu movie, my first midnight movie, and then my first Hollywood musical, to my first giallo movie, or my first Yakuza movie. So they get really genre specific, really fast, pretty wild, but really fun, and again with some superb illustrations. So I definitely think this would be a fun one to flip through with Noah, and I think you're going to be as entertained as Noah is with these. But my actual pick is physical media, vinyl, Blu-ray, CDs, books. Again, I want to bring back this ritual of physical media and intentional media consumption. We talk about podcasts, we talk about music, and how they often these days tend to kind of wash over us rather than us kind of like sit down intently and listen to those mediums. You can even say the same is happening with films and TV, just given the sheer amount of movies and television that are available to stream and the sheer choice, right? It's very, very difficult to maintain that concentration throughout without picking up a phone or something else. Physical media and the art of picking something out and that intention, I think, brings back something that is slowly being eradicated. And you know, again, you can tie in your physical media with your digital media. This isn't a pick, but obviously a Raspberry Pi, run a Home Assistant on that, get an NFC reader, make a few shortcuts, and suddenly you've got this tie-in between your physical media and your digital media. These are the picks for physical releases this holiday season. First, Severance Season 2, the original soundtrack, is available this time through Mutant on both limited edition vinyl and CD. I have a copy of both on their way to me. I believe they're shipping the second week of December, right before Christmas. So fingers crossed everything goes well there. Then in terms of Blu-rays, Coda had its most recent 4K Blu-ray release through Universal. And this surprisingly is better than the Italian 4K Blu-ray release that came out a year or two ago. This one featuring not only Dolby Vision, but Dolby Atmos, and at 48 kilohertz. So a really, really good audio soundtrack there, better than what you can get currently on the current Apple TV hardware. Then we've got F1 the movie on 4K Blu-ray, which is available on Steelbook as well as normal 4K Blu-ray. Comes with an Apple TV app digital copy in the US through the Warner Brothers release over in the US. Other territories have kind of moved away from digital media in terms of the redeemable codes. They went a long, long time ago when Ultraviolet died a death. So I always try and import from the US for the digital copy to tie in with the TV app. In terms of books, one that I think is worth getting, and it's a new release. It's from Roger Deakins, Reflections on Cinematography. Now, the first print is sold only in the US thus far. I believe it's being released internationally early next year, but you can get it on Amazon.com, import it over, and you can also find signed copies on eBay right now because there was a launch event that happened in Hollywood just a couple of days ago. So this comes highly recommended. It's perfect really for the loved one in your life wanting to improve their photography skills, and this book I think is going to teach them a lot about the medium, and from one of the masters of the medium, Roger Deakins. That's what I've got for you for physical media. But the ritual carries on, right? Because not only do you want to sit down with something, you want to set the mood. And when it comes to watching films, you want good food as well. So I've got a few picks for you for setting the mood and food, and maybe candles. Lamps are amazing. That's why you see many in films, like everywhere, right? But the lamp I'm obsessed with is the Biagio lamp by Flux. Actually, as seen in the Severance behind the scenes video from Apple, this lamp, which is made, I think, from marble, some of them are, is $4,000 to $8,000.
Oh, wow.
So for the mere mortals, there's candles, and they smell nicer, let's be honest. So here's my candle picks. There's a company out of New York called Maison Sante, not Maison Son, but Maison Sante candles. And what they do is they bring out scented candles that will match the genre of the film that you're watching. So everything from old Hollywood to rom-coms. And they've got scents for every genre, and occasionally there'll be an occasional partnership. Right now, there's a collaboration between Mubi and Maison Sante for the release of Die My Love, the new Jennifer Lawrence movie, which I've heard amazing things about. Then, if you want something a little fancier, there's a company out there called Flickr. And what they do is they create these bust candles of your favourite directors. And the one that I love the most, beyond the green Alfred Hitchcock, and I think there's Akira Kurosawa and someone else, I can't think of their name right now, but the one I love is the Spike Lee candle. It's such a beautiful bust, though. I don't think I could ever set it alight, but it's definitely something I would love to have on the mantelpiece. Of course, when it comes to good movies and TV shows, it comes to good food, right, Devon?
Absolutely. I mean, we just talked about licorice pizza last week, which I haven't tried yet, but sounds delicious. But yeah, I mean, you got to have a good dinner when it comes time, and maybe a themed dinner with your film as well.
Pizza is just so easy, right? But how about if you were to learn pizza from the master, Franco Pape? He's got a pizza chef book available right now. It comes highly recommended. Photographs look beautiful, and then when I did a little bit of research, noted that the photographs actually came from cinematographer Adam Bricker, who will be most famous for his work on The Chef's Table, as well as Hacks. I think a few episodes here and there. So there's that great book. And then I'd also say, whilst pizza is universal for the most part, maybe someone that's lactose intolerant may have some difficulties there. The Crossroads Kitchen book, Crossroads Kitchen is like this vegan kitchen in Los Angeles. It's amazing. This book is incredible. I've had it for years and years and years. Made some beautiful dishes from this that can accompany film. Right, so things that you can eat with your hands. Although I always recommend watch a film first, then come down, get the dinner that's been prepared, and talk about it over dinner, right? That's the ritual element that I'm trying to bring in here with those picks. So that's what we've got for you from the physical media, digital media, and the bringing back the ritual of media consumption for this year's gift guide. But we do have still a couple more gadgets, right?
Absolutely. I've got to share something nerdy to go along with, all this great talk about physical media and food. And actually, I'm really hungry now, so thank you for that. I might have to go eat after we record. But one thing we've talked about a lot is losing your Siri remote. And thankfully, that's a solved issue now between the Find My option in the remote app to use Bluetooth to find it, or you can get one of those cases to put your remote in with an AirTag. But I know that's a big concern for people who watch Apple TV. But you also don't want to lose your other items as well. And, Find My is one of those product categories that just continues to grow. And it's a great opportunity for gift giving. And Nomad recently came out with a new Find My device that I thought was really interesting. It's called the Tracking Card Pro. It's a metal card, which I don't know about you, Sigmund, but I love metal cards in my wallet. And it takes up the space of 2 or 3 credit cards in your wallet, but then it adds Find My support so that if you lose your wallet, it's like having an AirTag. You can track it down with Find My, and you won't have to worry about losing it. I have one of these cards that was from the very first wave when Apple first introduced third-party Find My devices, and it has come in handy several times. I left my wallet at work one time, got home, and didn't know where my wallet was, and I was able to check the map and see, okay, it's in my office, it's safe, it's not going to get stolen. The thing about the one that I have is it's not rechargeable, so once the battery dies on it, it's just done. I'll have to send it back to the company to be recycled. And so what's great about this Nomad one is it's rechargeable. It lasts over a year on a single charge, but when the battery does inevitably die, you can just drop it on a MagSafe or a key charger, and it'll just revive and be ready to go for another year, which is incredible. So much better for the environment. And it's cool to see how the Find My ecosystem has continued to grow and innovate in this way. And so if you know someone who's into tracking devices, if you know someone who loses their wallet a lot, give them one of these, and it'll be a great way to make sure they can keep track of it and not worry about the battery dying and not being able to recharge it as well.
Very, very cool. I want to give a little bit of an online tip here, right? An eBay tip, right? Put in Apple TV props and see what comes up. Because one of the props that I saw just yesterday, there was a bunch of costumes and props that were available for highest to lowest. And one of the prop collections were the cards from Denzel Washington's character, his credit cards.
Oh.
So if you end up purchasing that from A24 and Apple, you've now got the Nomad Tracking Card Pro in which to put them in, should you ever lose that investment. And I want to go also to stocking stuffer. I'm pretty sure I've used this before, but I think it's well worth mentioning, especially to those that aren't as tech savvy and into the Apple ecosystem as maybe you are, but they have the devices, right? And that is the Belkin iPhone mount for FaceTime and SharePlay on Apple TV. It's available through Apple. Or even better, because I do think it's a little bit of a clumsy device, even though there are like mounting elements to it, there is a bit of a balancing element to it as well for TV screens. So my recommendation is actually the I'm Lucky's MagSafe mount, upgraded magnetic laptop phone holder, 180-degree adjustable continuity camera, mount clip compatible with MagSafe. Yes, that is the product name. But what I really love about this is the idea that once you have your MagSafe connection to be able to do SharePlay and continuity camera via your Apple TV, you can hide it again, right? It just flips back down when not in use if you don't have a spare iPhone, as a permanent continuity camera fixture, which I'd imagine the majority of us do not. And I think that's also due to the fact that the features omitted actually from the Apple TV App Store displays. So you'll be surprised how many people don't actually know about SharePlay and continuity camera. So a gift like that, $15 I think, around that price right now, would probably be the perfect gift for every family member, because then you're showing them, oh, by the way, did you know you could do this? We can FaceTime, or we can actually watch something together. And I think that's one of the other things during this holiday season, whatever religion you may be a part of, or maybe you're not, there's a loneliness epidemic, which I think this feature fixes to a point. So again, highly recommend the I Am Lucky's magnetic MagSafe phone holder for continuity camera. Blah de blah de blah. And lastly, because we haven't talked video games at all beyond a short mention of Zelda, the 8BitDo Pro Free controller. It works on Apple TV and iOS devices. Some of the 8BitDo controllers don't, which is a shame, because the new N64 Bluetooth controller that 8BitDo have brought out isn't compatible with Apple TV and iOS, which is a real shame. But this 8BitDo Pro Free controller comes in a grey, which I think is going to as closely match the Siri remote as possible. It would have been great if it was in a brushed silver aluminium, but it's not to be.
Well, we all know the links that you'll go to match your Siri remote, Sigmund. Don't forget, we all still remember the iPad Magic Keyboard that you swapped the keycaps on.
Oh, God. Yes.
Maybe
still alive and well, by the way.
That's great to hear. Maybe not the most advisable project for other people to replicate, but it was very cool to see as well. That's our gift kind for this year. Of course, links to all of these things in the show notes. If you have thoughts on different gifts that you'll be giving to your loved ones that you'd like to share with us, of course, we'd love to hear them, get different ideas for the Apple TV lover in your life. And yeah, we wish everyone the best of luck as shopping is getting ready for the holiday season and celebration plans are coming together.
One thing I've been trying to shop for this past weekend came amongst a safety recall of one of my favourite products, a Belkin product, the Belkin Auto Tracking Stand Pro with Apple Dock Kit, has been recalled due to a manufacturing defect which may cause the product's lithium-ion cell components to overheat, which could then pose a fire hazard to consumers. I saw this being announced. I immediately unplugged my device, which I had set up permanently for SharePlay and continuity camera sessions in my home cinema, because it's very difficult to really find a way in which to make that work with a projection system. And what I really loved about this product was the base had like a quarter 20 screw underneath it, so you could put it on the stand if you wanted to, but also the base looked like a vase to a degree, and so it made it look like something you would want to have in your home. The other DockKit compatible devices are very much your selfie stick style gimbals, right? And they're fantastic. Insta360 do a DockKit compatible version with their Pro version of their gimbal. DJI have a fantastic gimbal for iPhone filmmakers as well, which works with DockKit and has these features that I want, but both are kind of ugly in comparison to the Belkin. So I'm hoping Belkin don't give up, because they were the first to release a product that brought DockKit and allowed basically for one-touch connection, and then you could set it to follow you, right? And that's the wonderful thing about this, especially if you've got multiple people in a room and other people are talking, and it was able to suss everything out. And now I'm losing that, and it sounds like not a big loss for those that don't do SharePlay and continuity camera lots, but I really do.
Yeah, it's a shame, and I hope they're able to get this worked out and get the product back out on the market soon, because like you said, there's not anything quite like it to replace it. that's available now. DocKit is such a cool framework, and I'm glad to see that several different vendors are supporting it. But this product held a special place in the lineup, and I hope that they're able to get it back for sale soon for people like yourself who do a lot of share play, and for people who use that kind of functionality in the kitchen when they're cooking or on family phone calls or wherever else. There's lots of places it comes in handy, and it's sad to see it have to be recalled, but fingers crossed for a hopeful future for the product.
And I think for the future of the home, right, we heard about a particular rumor about a robotic stand for an iPad that would follow you, a bit like what this already did. So maybe I end up waiting for that, and maybe Belkin decide, actually we're not going to relaunch this because we know what's coming. Being Belkin are a partner of Apple, often producing the devices that Apple aren't quite ready to produce themselves, or don't want to produce themselves. And talking of recent hardware partners, we had this big hoopla, right? Started at WWDC about PSVR 2 Sense controllers being compatible with Apple Vision Pro. They are. They have been since WWDC for those that have been testing the betas, and then obviously we had the public release in September. The thing that we were waiting for, though, was PSVR 2 Sense controllers to become available for purchase at Apple retail stores. It is available for purchase in the US, and it comes with a stand for the 2 Sense controllers. However, outside of the US is a completely different story. I don't know if it's a logistical nightmare that happened and delayed things. There hasn't been any official word from Apple about the delays. But what I can tell you from this week is that I was privy to seeing some documentation from Apple Retail with regard to what accessories were expected during this holiday season. And PSVR 2 Sense controllers were not part of the list for December. I'm no doubt thinking that PSVR 2 Sense controllers will become available in other regions where Apple Vision Pro is sold. But right now, if you're not in the US, you don't have an easy way of obtaining these controllers because Sony don't sell them separately either.
Yeah, it's really interesting that, of course, people who have the PlayStation VR have been able to try out this integration for quite some time. It's just been the only way to get the controllers has been to buy the full system, which obviously if you don't have a PlayStation, then that's not really going to benefit you having the headset for the console as well. So it's great that this is available to more people to purchase and try out with the Vision Pro, but it's interesting how limited the rollout is, and it's been a long time coming since June, since it was announced. So hopefully they'll be able to get it in more markets soon, and that will inspire more developers to integrate with it. And the real hope is that in the long term, this will get more VR game developers to port their games over to Vision Pro. And we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. And who knows, maybe Apple could spur that on with some Apple Arcade integrations. We've seen some of those exclusive titles coming to Vision Pro, and maybe we'll see more of them. In the meantime, we did find out this week the batch of games coming to Apple Arcade in December. Of course, there's a new batch every month. This coming month, on December 4th, we'll see SpongeBob Patty Pursuit 2, which is a sequel to the current game on Apple Arcade, and it will see our hero team up with his arch nemesis Plankton to save Bikini Bottom, and it will feature a local co-op mode, which is very cool. We'll also see the relaxing and satisfying Power Wash Simulator come to Apple Arcade. This looks right up my alley, Sigmund. I like things to be clean and tidy, and so just spraying grime off of random stuff with a pressure washer sounds like a fantastic way to let off some steam. We've also got the Cult of Lamb Arcade Edition, a roguelike game where you play as a lamb tasked with amassing followers. Subway Surfers Plus, the endless running game that you've no doubt seen clips of in various social media videos. It seems like anytime I'm scrolling reels or anything like a vertical video, a lot of times I'll run into these with someone talking over them. I don't totally get that genre, but I guess if you want to make those using Apple Arcade, you will be able to starting in December. Then we've got Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm Plus, which is a 3D fighting game based on the massively popular manga and anime series. Let's move from gaming to sports now, because the Apple Sports app is now available in additional European countries. There's a long list of them. If you're in Europe and previously weren't able to use the Sports app, check out the App Store now, because it's expanded to a lot of new places. It's a great app for keeping up with local teams and leagues. And if you previously weren't able to access it, it's available in a lot more places now. One league, of course, you can keep up with in Apple Sports is Major League Soccer. And there was a big announcement this week about Apple's deal with Major League Soccer. It's the announcement that MLS Season Pass, the streaming service, is going to be coming to an end. Apple and MLS have amended their partnership to dissolve the service starting next season and instead include all MLS matches, studio shows, and on-demand content in the Apple TV subscription, similar to Apple's deal with Formula One racing, but in over 100 countries rather than just the US. An Apple TV subscription will also be included as part of a 2026 full-season ticket package with MLS clubs. And Apple and MLS have also shortened the length of their deal, which will now end in 2029, 3.5 years earlier than previously agreed. And the numbers that have been reported for these deals say that Apple will pay MLS $200 million for the 2026 season, $107.5 million for the shortened 2027 season, and $275 million each for the 2027, 2028, and 28-29 seasons. If you'll notice there, the numbers changed a little bit in the way we refer to the seasons, and that's because MLS is changing up the way that seasons are structured, I think to be more standardized, I think, with the way that European soccer works, Sigmund, where you play throughout the summer and fall, take a winter break, and then start again in the spring. Is that right?
Yeah, and not all leagues. I mean, in England and Scotland, we don't take a break during the winter. If anything, there are more games than ever during the winter. Sometimes, 3 or 4 spaced in a week with no time to recover whatsoever. So this is going to be a good change for the players. And I think also if there's going to be a move away from AstroTurf, it's going to give the stadiums a chance to recover. So that could be very, very cool as well. I have been an MOS Season Pass subscriber since MOS Season Pass began. And I have to admit, even though I was really, really happy for everyone else to get access to MOS Cup and so much more, it was starting to devalue my investment in MOS Season Pass, and I was starting to get a little bit irked that I'd paid up front right at the beginning of the season as much as I had. This change, I think, makes the perfect sense. MOS and football is more international. So to bring that to the world via the Apple TV subscription, I think is a good thing. The thing we desperately need outside of the US to coincide with this is a sports tab, and hopefully a shift in momentum for sports in the TV app in other regions beyond the US. So I think it's cool. The other thing I would say also is obviously this change in terms of what Apple pay, as much as it coincides with how the league is being structured, it also, I think, coincides with a certain Lionel Messi's contract expiration, which I think will be a big part of that. And it'll be interesting to see what Lionel Messi's next moves are and what the next moves are for MOS in terms of approaching talent and making sure that MOS grows from strength to strength. Also, next year, World Cup year. Also, next year, Ted Lasso Season 4 year. So there's lots that could be tied in with MOS Season Pass, and that alongside F1, big reasons to draw in the sports fans to the Apple TV app. So it's good stuff overall, I think.
Absolutely. I think bringing all of those rights in under the Apple TV banner make a lot of sense. That's what we see the other streamers doing. It seems like every major streaming service, at least in the US, has some sports rights that they're bundling with the entertainment. And so Eddie Q has said with Apple TV, they're serious about making this a business that works. And I think this shows that they're serious about that they're consolidating, that they're making it really easy for subscribers to know if you want MLS, then you got Apple TV. And you got Ted Lasso and everything else as well. So Yeah, I think this is the right move, and I'm not going to be mad about not having to pay separately for MLS Season Pass next year. I think for people who are already enjoying it as a service and paying for Apple TV, it's just a win, and it should bring in more people that way too. You know what really brings people into the TV app, Sigmund? That is trailers for upcoming Apple originals. Of course, you can watch them in the highest quality in the Apple TV app. That's the best way to do it. And this week we got two big ones. We got the trailer for the final season of Wonla, which comes out on November 26th. And we got the much anticipated teaser and date announcement for Monarch, Legacy of Monsters Season 2.
Yes, Monarch Legacy of Monsters is going to resurface Friday, February 27th on Apple TV. But what did we think? I don't think the surprise was necessarily that King Kong was going to show, given this is Monarch Legacy of Monsters, and who bigger and better in this mythology than King Kong. But Kurt Russell, were we expecting his return as well?
I've seen this reported like it was a surprise. Maybe I just ignorantly expected him to come back. Of course, if you've seen season 1, you know that the fate of the character's in the balance, but I just never expected that they would write him out, and he's getting to work with his son on this show, which I imagine is a lot of fun. He brings that star power to it. So I'm glad that he's back and excited that he's going to continue on. It'll be interesting to see what they do with his character based on where he ended up in season 1. But of course, we know that Skull Island is going to be a huge part of this season. It's a place that we've been to before in the films that fans, I'm sure, are excited to return to. And it'll be interesting to see what exactly comes out of the island and this mysterious new Titan from the water. I think that's going to be the big mystery this season, is what exactly is going on there. But I'm just so impressed with the effects on this show. Of course, they're going to put the best ones in the trailer because that's what makes sense. But I mean, to me, from what I've seen of the films, this is cinematic quality with the effects here.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have that with the Titans. And this show does such a great job with it, to the point that it just feels so cohesive with the rest of the MonsterVerse world, and I love that.
Question for you, though. Given how we've got all of the legendary Monsters films on Apple Vision Pro in 3D, and I'm going to unearth this old rumour from what I'd heard back in the day about Monarch Legacy of Monsters having an immersive video component, do we think we're getting that component this season?
I'm going to keep believing and believe, Sigmund. I've got to trust that it's going to happen. They've been doing lots and lots of spatial photography behind the scenes of Apple Originals, but eventually it's got to move into the immersive videography. And with the cameras becoming more and more available, this seems like the perfect series to kick it off. So, yeah, I hope we see something behind the scenes or an extra element to it. I don't know exactly what that'll look like, but I'd love to see it. But moving from the fictional island of Skull Island, Sigmund, to the nature in our real world, there's a new nature series coming to Apple TV on December 19th. It's called Born to be Wild, and it's going to premiere with all 6 episodes. Filmed over several years across 3 continents and narrated by Hugh Bonneville, the documentary series follows 6 endangered young animals as they grow up in our world but are destined to return to theirs. So, another great addition to the nature series on Apple TV. This will be a good follow-up to Prehistoric Planet Ice Age, which of course we're eagerly anticipating next week. And I think for people who love to see nature documentaries narrated by great British actors, it's going to be a great couple months.
Oh yeah, very much so. And you know what? We might have a great beginning to the year as well, not just for original series but for original films. We haven't heard too much about what the rollout's going to be for original films at the beginning of next year, but I think we may have stumbled across a clue. Overcome, the upcoming Apple Films and Strong Baby production, directed by Jonah Hill and written alongside Ezra Woods, has been rated by the MPAA ahead of a likely early 2026 release. The film stars Tacey Amos IV, Keanu Reeves and Cameron Diaz, and follows Hollywood star Reef as he is forced to confront his problems and atone for his past after being threatened by bizarre video footage from his past. I believe this is also going to star Jonah Hill as well as being directed by him. I've been really looking forward to this, and I think filming finished for this in 2024, really early 2024. So this was a film that we were expecting for the tail end of this year. But yeah, it looks like not too far away given that it's already been rated, and it's been rated R. Jonah Hill, Keanu Reeves and Cameron Diaz fans, hopefully you don't have too much longer to wait. And talking of filming, filming for season 5 of Trying has wrapped. Obviously, we can't wait for the show to return with its 5th season, but it is currently being bred new life on BBC television in the UK, subscription free, which is very, very cool. Until we wait for the show return, as they say in Italy, alla prossima. So look forward to that. Hopefully I'm saying that well. Federico, I'm sure, will correct me in a private message at some point. What have we got for us in terms of in-development news, though, Devon? Quite a bit this time round.
Yeah, lots in development, and first off is a familiar name to Apple TV fans. Jason Momoa himself will star in Apple original biker drama series Nomad from Kurt Sutter, the creator of Sons of Anarchy, and Chris Collins, who is a writer for Sons of Anarchy, as well as John Wick Chapter 3. Can't seem to get away from Keanu Reeves either, Sigmund. In the violent underworld of New Zealand's outlaw bikers, a warrior torn between 2 lives, 2 callings, and 2 families must decide which path defines his true destiny. Sutter and Collins are currently writing the pilot, with Collins set to showrun this series. So this sounds really exciting. Of course, Jason Momoa has been on Apple TV from the beginning and continues to work there, which is awesome. And with the names attached to this one, I was tempted to say this one has legs, Sigmund, but I guess it has wheels.
I like it. It's interesting though, right? A biker gang in New Zealand. I can't imagine there are many people in New Zealand, so everyone's got to know the biker gang. I'm fascinated by this premise. Elsewhere in development, Apple has ordered Running, a sports film from director Gavin O'Connor and written by Build a Book, the team behind the Accountant franchise, which obviously spawned its 2 films and possibly a 3rd in the future. This film, however, is going to follow a running prodigy on the hunt for greatness, who uses his gifts to outrun his past and forge his future. It comes to us by way of Apple Studios, Make Ready, and Nike will also be set to produce the film as well. So is it Nike or Nike? I always say Nike. I always get told, no, it's Nike.
I've always said it Nike. Hopefully I'm not saying it wrong. Now you got me questioning it.
There we go.
Regardless, it sounds like an interesting premise, and we'll keep an eye as that film comes together. Apple's also developing a series adaptation of the Financial Times and Pushkin podcast Hot Money, The New Narcos, from Richard Pepler's Eden Productions. Investigated and hosted by Financial Times reporter Miles Johnson, the 8-episode podcast follows a cocaine super cartel that revolutionized the global drugs market, connecting Ireland's kingdom crime family to a mysterious murder in a small town and a web of drugs, money laundering, and state-sponsored assassinations stretching from Dublin to Dubai. So we talked about how Apple is ordering books into series and films constantly, but podcast is another place where Apple TV is finding a lot of good stories to adapt. And this sounds like a fascinating one. I'm not familiar with this one. Usually when I hear about these stories based on real life that are being adapted, I then immediately block out anything. If I come across a headline, I'm like, I don't want to know the story. I want to be surprised by the series. But this is another collaboration, of course, with Eden Productions from Richard Plepler, and another podcast being adapted by Apple TV. In awards news, the Critics' Choice celebration of Asian American and Pacific Islander cinema and television happened this week, with 3 awards going to members from Apple Original Series. For the Social Impact Award, Thomas Pa Sibit won for Chief of War. Chase We Wonders won the Breakthrough Actress Award for The Studio, and Lakita Maxwell won the Rising Star Award for her work on Shrinking. So congratulations to those winners, very well deserved.
and shows that you should be catching up with if you haven't already. But let's talk about this week's Apple TV releases. Starting today, new episodes of Palm Royale, Loot, and Down Cemetery Road, alongside the finale of the morning show. I thought last week's episode was the finale, given the trouble that Bradley's in. What do you think?
Yeah, this season went down some wild routes. I don't think if I had listed 100 ideas for where the season was going to go, what's currently happening would have ever been on my list, but it is fascinating, and of course we'll all get to find out how it ends today with the finale of the season, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it in days to come. This Friday sees the premiere of The Family Plan 2. Sigmund, is this the first Apple original film sequel?
I think it may be. Yeah.
I can't think of another Apple original film that has had a sequel come out. There's been talks about Argylle, of course, becoming a series, or Fountain of Youth was another one that was floated. I don't know that we've heard anything about either of those coming forward, but The Family Plan, who would have thought that'd be the first one to have a sequel come out? But regardless, just in time for the holidays, we got The Family Plan 2. Now that Dan's assassin days are behind him, all he wants for Christmas is quality time with his kids. But when he learns his daughter has her own plans, he books a family trip to London, putting them all in the crosshairs of an unexpected enemy. That's all we're going to say about it this week, because Sigmund, you and I haven't had a chance to see it just yet, but we'll talk more about it next week. So if listeners want to join in on that conversation, go ahead and check it out this weekend, and we'll be chatting about that on next week's episode. Friday also sees new episodes of Pluribus and The Last Frontier, and the finale to Knife Edge. I don't know about you, Sigmund, but Thursdays are Pluribus nights in my house. I have set aside that time as soon as it hits time. It's 8 p.m. here for me, just as Noah's going to bed, and kick on Pluribus, and that is a great way to spend a Thursday night. So pumped to see what's next for that show. For MLS fans, of course, the playoffs are available for all Apple TV subscribers. You can keep up with the action there. In terms of extras this week, we've got the ebook Blood Song of Waikaro, which is an excerpt from the thrilling fourth novel in Carol Sturker's epic romantasy trilogy. And you can access that on Apple Books. Check out a clip from the book that, of course, is heavily referenced in the show. We've also got a behind the scenes from F1 the Movie and a sticker pack for iMessage for Apple Arcade Original Sneaky Sasquatch, which, of course, Apple purchased earlier this year. So it's cool to see that app getting integrated in the system a little bit more. And if you want to send some Sasquatches to your friends in iMessage, you can now do that with the sticker pack. Of course, we'll link that in the show notes.
Very, very cool. Of course, with all of that and more, we end each episode with our up next picks. Mine slightly off kilter. Devon's no doubt from Disney Plus. What have you got for us?
It is the most Disney Plus time of year, Sigmund. I can't help myself. They're just on a roll right now. And I spend a lot of time in the Disney Plus app, but even more so lately. But it just has me written all over it. I had to highlight it. A new film on Disney Plus for Christmas. It's called A Very Jonas Christmas Movie, starring, of course, Kevin, Joe, and Nick Jonas, the Jonas Brothers, as well as Chloe Bennett, with Ray Park, Jesse Tyler Ferguson, Laverne Cox, Billy Lord, and more. Just a really great cast there. In the film, the three famous brothers race against time and face challenges during a chaotic journey from London to New York, desperate to make it home in time for Christmas with their loved ones. It's directed by Jessica Yu. It features 7 original songs by the Jonas Brothers, and it's streaming now on Disney+. I grew up loving the Jonas Brothers, watching their series on the Disney Channel called Jonas. This is separate from that. I believe they're just playing fictional versions of themselves, and the trailer's hilarious. I haven't had a chance to watch this in full just yet, but no doubt this is going to be a part of my Christmas celebration this year, watching the Jonas Brothers try to get home for Christmas. What could be better?
I don't know, Devon. What could be better?
Well, that's my pick. I'm guessing your pick is not from Disney Plus based on your intro here.
It isn't. Actually, this week is a packed week for movies, and so I just want to mention off the top 3 films that I will be watching. After the Hunt, starring Julia Roberts, Ayo Edebiri, Andrew Garfield, Michael Stuhlbarg, and Chloe Sevigny. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, starring Rose Byrne, Conan O'Brien, Daniel McDonald, Christian Slater, and A$AP Rocky. And Train Dreams, starring Joel Edgerton, Felicity Jones, and Kerry Condon. So 3 films. with blockbuster casts, and yet this week's Up Next pick is a little bit different from me, purely because it's such a different take on a genre I'm quite fond of, and being it's debuting on Shudder, you've got a good idea of that genre, of course, horror thriller. My Up Next pick this week is Good Boy. It follows a loyal dog who moves to a rural family home with his owner Todd, only to discover supernatural forces lurking in the shadows. As dark entities threaten his human companion, the brave pup must fight to protect the one he loves most. Now, given all of the stars that I just mentioned, this film's star is a dog called Indy, a real dog, not AI generated or anything of the like, whom actually had been trained and teased with doggy treats to emit the emotions needed during principal photography. And how can you even go about getting a dog, even a well-trained one, to work with the blocking alone? And I think that's a feat in itself. This film was filmed over 400 days and over the course of 3 years, directed by Ben Leonberg, and not the most universal pick, Devon, but come on, how can you pick anything else this week? A dog fighting off supernatural spirits, and I think the title Good Boy is like a double kind of meaning there, right? Obviously it's dog related, but good boy for doing this work, and I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah, this sounds really compelling. I'd say just based on the amount of work Indy's put in alone, we need to put him up for lead actor next year for the Oscars. And this definitely seems like a pick worth checking out this weekend, and from a service we don't cover very often, so that's great as well. Opportunity to support a smaller streamer, which I'm sure has plenty of films that fall right in your alley, Sigmund, and ones that would make me cover my eyes.
Yes, a streamer with a different pedigree.
That's good. Well, with that, we're going to say goodbye for this week. Thanks to everyone so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. And we'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to reach out, you can contact us on social media via the links in the show notes, or you can contact us via our contact form, which we'll also link in the show notes.
We'll be back next week with a trip to London and Paris in Family Plan 2. And we go back to prehistoric times with Prehistoric Planet Ice Age. So wrap up warm, watch some Apple TV, play some Apple Arcade. And until next time, have a great week.